Half a day, just over the weekend, the primary election ended and Ginger Cruz came out on top for the Democratic race. Ginger, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So this was your first election, came out on top. I know Matsuki and Destiny were with you at your camp when the results came out. But what's your reflection now? We're officially about 90 days away from the general.
Well, there's a lot more hard work to do. And I think you can tell from my voice that we put a lot of hard work into the election going into the primary. And we really, I think, over the course of the primary, the favorite thing that I've found is that the more input that you get and the more people give you their thoughts, their advice, they share their problems, the sharper your ability to sort of understand how to build your platform becomes. And we started out at the very beginning with some basic ideas, some concepts for how we could do better in Washington, D.C., and how we could get Washington, D.C. to work better for the people of Guam. But over time and throughout the primary election, I'm so grateful for all of the input from so many people who have explained what problems are, who shared some potential solutions, and all of that has sort of helped to build this knowledge base for what we can do in order to set a vision and then a plan for how to accomplish it for the people of Guam.
Of course, you're no stranger to this set, and we usually have you here analyzing the results. One of the headlines coming out of the weekend was low voter turnout, about just 30%.
Yes.
So maybe with your analyst hat on, if you weren't running in the race, what would you say about that turnout?
So the interesting thing about the turnout was, I think that the Democratic congressional race energized the voters to come out. Because if you really look at it, there was no race on the senatorial side for either the Republican or the Democrat candidates, because they were all going to make it into the general election. And then in many of the mayor's races, again, there were not challengers. So there was almost no reason for many voters to go to the polls, because they could have expressed their votes in the general election, aside from a few very challenging, very interesting races on the mayoral side, and of course the congressional race. So I believe that, it's not really fair to compare the voter turnout in this election with the voter turnout in previous elections, because largely the Republican side did not have a challenge in the congressional race, and they didn't have anyone that wasn't going to make it in the senatorial. So I think that having 30% turnout was a decent showing given the circumstances. But of course we need more. We really need voters to turn out, because the whole race is about representation. Who's going to represent you in Washington, who is going to represent you in the legislature, and who's going to take care of your villages. And so it's really important as a part of civic duty for everyone to show up to vote. So I'm hoping we have a much better turnout in the general.
All right, thanks for that. I did want to ask you more about your campaign. We saw as it unfolded that night, Senator Shelton did call, and now the language is heading towards healing for the general. Have you heard, what are your plans to reach out to the other candidates? Have you heard from former delegate Michael Siniclas as well?
I did. I heard from both of them on the morning of the election, and I'm very grateful to both Senator Amanda Shelton and former Congressman Mike Siniclas for reaching out. I think, as I said that night, all the three of us have a shared love for the island and a shared understanding that we need to do better for the people of Guam. I mean, the fact that there were 3 Democratic candidates running against an incumbent, I think, was a clear signal to the people of Guam that we can do better, and all of us felt that there was an ability to do more. And so I hope to share those thoughts with them. I did really appreciate those calls, and I did ask them both if they have time this week for us to sit down and get together, because it's about bringing the party together. It is about unity. We have more in common, I believe, than we have differences. And I think harnessing their thoughts and their support in order to make a difference and bring more support from Washington, D.C. to the people of Guam is something we all could agree on.
We actually got Senator Shelton's call to you recorded. I'm curious what former delegate Siniclas told you.
He actually had reached out right when the polls closed, and we both agreed that no matter the outcome, that it was really important for us to make sure that we did better in DC than the current incumbent, and I agreed with him. And then right after Senator Shelton called, I did get a call from former Congressman St. Nicholas, and he said the same thing. And so I am looking forward to really to meeting with them, because it's not the ideas are not mine alone. The ideas for how we can serve Guam better are going to come from the community. They're going to come from leadership, and I look to their input. I look to the input of their supporters, and of course to all of the supporters that we have, to widen our vision and include as many people as we can, because the DC office is one spot, and we have to be bipartisan in our approach. But at the same time, we also have to uphold the democratic ideals, which really are the basis for what got me through the primary. And I think the strong turnout from the Democratic base to show what they thought was important and who they wanted to represent them, I think that also is something that I will not forget.
You mentioned on Saturday that you've always been approaching this race as if you're already running against Delegate Moylan. You also made a point to say to Destiny Matsuki that night that you're going to reach out to the GOP. So has that begun? Yeah,
so actually we have been talking to members of the Republican Party all throughout this race. The DC office, because it's a non-voting delegate, is very interesting, because when it comes down to those critical votes in the House, Guam is not going to be a deciding factor in terms of a Democrat-Republican split. We kind of bridge that in a way. And the important thing to always emphasize is that Guam issues need support from everyone in Washington. We need to be able to gather a coalition of support from not only the Democrats in Washington, but also from the Republicans in Washington. Because at the end of the day, it's about national security. It is about America's strength in the Indo-Pacific, and Guam is such a key part of that. And that is not a partisan issue. That is an issue that the United States can stand behind. And I think the more that we approach Guam's role in Washington, D.C. as a critical role for national security, but also a critical role for diplomacy and for keeping the peace at a very, very important time in the history of Guam and in the history of the United States. If we can be that peacemaker, if we can be that shining economy in the Indo-Pacific, and we can also be that strong deterrence that makes sure that there is not going to be any sort of military conflict in this very critical time, I think we can get the support of both parties for the people of Guam.
All right, we've heard about your platform 2.0. 3.0 on the way, I understand?
3.0 is on the way.
And what's the major difference there? Or what are maybe some new key points that you're trying to make 90 days out from the general?
So we are actually expanding the platform. There are new pieces of data that come in all the time. For example, when I went through the GMA debate and had an opportunity to really talk with the folks that run the public health programs, with the island's doctors, with people who are struggling right now and finding there to be gaps in healthcare coverage for them on the island. All of these things are helping to inform a refined vision of the platform. So I think what people will see as we put together Platform 3.0 is more information, more specifics, detail about different areas that we are going to pursue, and more detail on exactly how we plan to accomplish that in Washington.
All right, I know we're just a few days out of the primary, but of course all eyes are on the general. Are you up for a debate with Moylan? Would you like one to happen?
Absolutely. I am very much looking forward to that, because I think the voters of Guam deserve to hear both of the candidates who are going to be running for this office debate in a way that helps them understand where we are coming from, the approach that we are going to take, and really the vision that we have for raising the issues of the people of Guam in this really critically important body. Everything that happens in Washington, D.C., all the policies that happen affect everyday life in Guam. I can't emphasize that enough. This is not just a position where you send someone to D.C. and you forget about it. The cost of living, our ability to travel and be able to have airfare that we can afford, our ability to be able to afford our utilities or our food services or our ability to enjoy all of the programs that we have here on the island. education, the support that we have for fighting crime and fighting drugs, all of that is tied directly to federal programs. And so people understanding how the federal government figures into your life and what we can do to make DC work better for the people of Guam, I think that is something that we are going to focus on, educating everybody and talking about, and I look forward to as many debates and forums and opportunities to discuss that as I possibly can do.
All right, that's all the questions I had. I wanted to just open the floor and give you an opportunity to make one last pitch here on the set on why you should be the next delegate.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to KUAM, and thank you to all of the people of Guam for listening and for being there. I think at the end of the day, all of us love Guam. Everybody who has run for this office, everybody who is running for this office, shares that commitment and wants to do the best possible job for the people of Guam. I think we all share that. I think the difference really comes down to our approach, our experience, what we've done, and how we have shaped the future that we have been a part of. I have worked with the Congress. I've worked with the Congress in a very different sort of a way. I did it from a position where I was in the executive branch, but tasked with working with the Congress. So I do have that expertise, but it gives me a different perspective. And I hope to lay that out in the coming days. And I hope the people of Guam will listen and will ask me the hard questions. And at the end of the day, it really is the future of Guam that is in the hands of the voters, and I hope they give me the chance, because I will not let the people down, and I am somebody who is going to bring every ounce of my experience and my knowledge and my love for Guam and my hard work, and I hope people get to see that in the next 90 days.
Thank you so much, Ginger Cruz, for your time.